I know it upsets a lot of people when I talk about what Russia is, because a lot of people in the West have no idea what Russia is. And they've basically been brainwashed to believe that Russia is some kind of beacon of hope in the world, bringing Christianity to the world, and all these types of nonsense, right? Fighting the Muzzies and all this dumb shit. But when you actually present them with facts that are, well, for them anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could tell me how I am wrong. But, just coming over here and saying, Russia, 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 that's stupid. That's not an argument. Like, muster an argument. Right? When I point out the inconsistencies with the propaganda and what's actually happening, right? The bringer of Christianity to the world, fighting for Christianity while just straight up murdering more Christians than anybody else in recent history. Definitely the Muslims included, right? Instead of telling me why it is, like, why it's so, the message that's sent out to the Western world and what's actually happening, why it's so inconsistent. And just giving you examples of this over and over and over, all these contradictions. The so-called rational right in the United States is supposedly concerned about children, right? Forget Christians for a moment, but children being abused and all this stuff. But when you point out that Russia kidnapped and is Russifying and abusing, and who knows how many of those little boys ended up in Putin's palaces, right? When you show them a video of Putin abusing, sexually molesting a boy in public, when you talk about all those children that were kidnapped into Russia, all of a sudden all the pizza gators got too much fucking pizza in their mouth to speak up. You guys are fucking clowns. That's why you get butthurt, because I point out how much of a fucking brainwashed clown you are. Shall we go on with the contradictions? No more foreign wars. No more faraway foreign wars that are costing us all this money. Oh, look at this shiny, beautiful F-47. Fucking Pete Hegseth and all those other clowns discussing war plans openly. No more foreign wars. I love you, Daddy. This is truly, obviously not everybody, but this is the level of geopolitical discussion in the West, insofar as the rational right is concerned. You guys are children. You got Rosie O'Donnell and whatever that rapper's name is making a song dunking on, liberals. Freedom, essentially, right? However perverted that party is, infiltrated and wrong. I spent years talking about that shit, all right? Let's try to be balanced. But that's essentially the level of geopolitical discussion. I was talking to someone maybe a week ago, and instead of talking about what it is that Trump is doing and how inconsistent that is with what he had promised, and just, all the contradiction, potential pitfalls, the dismantling of the U.S. democratic system, abuse of human rights, instead of talking about all those things that are important to that person, I thought, because he spent years talking about that shit, he wants to dunk on the liberals. Look at them, they're crying. Right? Andrew Wilson goes on Piers Morgan, and that's all that he does. There's no geopolitical discussion worthy of anything. There's no arguments being made. He's not making any fucking sense. He's not living by the virtues that he claims to uphold, contradicting himself left and right, projecting his own evil, and just dunking on the liberals. Right? And because I point that out, a bunch of you fucking clowns get butthurt. Yes, I know how to make it in this social media sphere. Tell you what you want to fucking hear. Not the truth, just what you want to hear. Yes, I get it. But for whatever reason, I just can't bring myself to do it. Which isn't to say that I'm right about everything. But I do my best to tell you the truth, whether it hurts your butt or it doesn't. So instead of coming over here and saying, Russia, 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 why don't you... Look, I certainly didn't. And you want to read this Bible, Dugin's Bible, okay? It's like almost 1,000 pages or something like that. And it's a very difficult read. And a lot of his so-called philosophy is absolute garbage. It's idiotic. He's a Satanist. It's just, it's icky, right? But you could just read the titles and then go to each individual chapter and just skim through what it is that he's saying. Or get the Cliff Notes. It's all over the internet. It's everywhere. It's out in the open. States as living organisms, law of expansion, geographical axis of history, Russia's key position, 3 geopolitical periods, marine civilization, right? That's the West, Atlanticists, France for sea force, serving America, Mackinder correction, right? If you don't know who Mackinder was, what his ideas were, well, Dugin is in that school of thought, kind of, but different, right? He has his own ideas. New Eurasian order, new world order, Eurasia, right? Conservative revolutionary, that's an interesting one. Go check it out. Russia, Eurasia, idiocracy, USSR and Eurasianism. This is just a continued. He's a Soviet. All his buddies, Putin, they're all Soviets. They're the last generation of Soviets. That's who they are. They put some new makeup on their face. They're all Soviets. End of history. I guess not. Internal geopolitics. Europe from Vladivostok to Dublin, right? All the way to Ireland. Eurasia. Russian Empire. Okay? Eurasian Empire of the end. Indian Ocean as a path to world domination. Right? This doesn't end with Eurasia. This goes on. New Russian Eurasians. Make everybody Russian, basically, right? The geopolitical future of Russia. What are Russian national interests? Russians today have no state. There's no borders to Russia, right? The whole world is Russia. Ruski mir. Duh. The lack of nation state among Russians, right? This guy's not a nationalist. You can't be a nationalist and hope to form a Eurasianist or global empire. It's incoherent. That's why when I tell you that this nationalism is just a psyop to divide and conquer you, well, he tells you this in this book. Just go skim through it. It's all in there. Western Axis, Moscow, Berlin, European Empire, and Eurasia, right? Don't trust Germany. I mean, it's complicated, right? It's complex. The Russian Empire has its tentacles everywhere. Or there are people all over the world who hold these ideas, right? When you look at Fay, whom I talked about in another video, he understood what was going on. He put a different spin on it, right? Perhaps for him, it's European elites having more of a say in this Eurasianist empire. For Dugin, it's the Russian elites having more of a say, right? But it's all going to be elites. When you look at Musk and his granddaddy and Technocracy Inc., go watch Democracy Now's video on Musk and his family, where he came from and what they were about, right? North American Union. That's what they were talking about this openly, right? Expanding growing the North American empire. This is George Orwell. It's all in there. All these federated states forming. I talked about this many, many years ago already. Now, I don't have all the details, and I don't understand all the interplay and all the... It's so complex, and it's global, and it's going to come to a head, right? Just like Hitler and Stalin had a pact to divide Europe amongst themselves. And then they were at each other's throats fighting, because these people agree that the world needs to be... There need to be axes of power and the new world order, right? Multipolar world order. Everyone seems to agree. All the big powers. Trump seems to agree. They all agree. We need to grab up as much land as we can, contiguous or land masses that are near our center of power projection, right? We just need to expand. And they're going to keep expanding. And in my opinion, they're going to clash. But right, if you have a world with, let's say, 200 different countries, well, how do you get world government? Well, you got to divide it into blocks and unite them all under maybe just 3 banners. Because then you just have 3 quote unquote countries that you need to unite. And they're going to fight against each other and try to figure this shit out. And maybe they never will. But this is where the world is headed. It was always thus. This is just human nature. Well, for some of these people, that's what it's about, right? All of us, most of us don't actually give a fuck. And that's why they've been so successful. Because there's enough people with imperial mindsets who just want power. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. And this is what they're doing. And so that's why you see... Well, maybe I'll get to it in just a second. Anyway, empire of many empires. Huh. Is that what I was just talking about? I don't know. Go read the book instead of coming over here and saying, Russia, Russia, Russia. How fucking stupid can you be? Priority of nuclear and intercontinental capabilities. Domestic geopolitics of Russia. Internal geopolitics and military doctrine. Geopolitical nature of the Russian Arctic, right? Greenland. The Finnish question. I mean, they want to go everywhere. Inner East. Belt of Siberian Russia. Capital of Siberia. Balkans. The fall of China. I mean, these guys are pretty ambitious. Baltic Federation, right? Catholic Slavs. Enter Central Europe. Just expand, 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 right? That's what geopolitics is. Geopolitical decomposition of Ukraine. The book was written in 1997, 2 years before Putin came into power. And it's a 40-year plan. Putin just extended his term into what, like 30-something year? And if he stays alive, it's going to be 40 years. This is a 40-year plan that was put into action 2 years before Putin went into power, right? I think the first Chechen war was right before Putin went into power. And it talks about invading Ukraine, taking over Ukraine. It has nothing to do with Ukrainians suppressing the Russian language or any of this bullshit you've been told and you believe and you champion screaming from the mountaintop. Any of this bullshit that Russian Jew, Americanized Russian Jew, Steve Witkoff just told you on Tucker Carlson. All of that is for public consumption for all the dupes to eat up and believe so that they could sleep well at night thinking that they're on the right side of history when ultimately they're just giving up their rights like a bunch of fucking idiots. Post-Byzantine Orthodoxy. National liberation of Orthodox people, right? Put them in the ovens. Liberate them through fucking chimneys. Greater Romania. Great Bulgaria, Orthodox Albania. Pan-Turkism, trap. Right? You got to destroy whatever's left of the Ottoman Empire. True Croats, priorities of the Yugoslav war. Serbia is Russia. Duh. The Rich North delusion. Superhuman communism. My God. Geopolitics of the third millennium, right? These people are thinking way into the future. And the reason why they have been able to carry out large parts of their plan, right? Expanding Russia into first Georgia so they could get a Black Sea base, right? Establish their presence in the Black Sea so that they could attack Ukraine, move toward Europe, take the Baltics, and not all of this is going to be military conflict because Russia is not strong enough to be able to do that, right? It's going to be done by interfering in elections, destabilizing Europe with migrants. Like it's all in this book. It's all out in the open. That's what they're doing. It's going to be done by brainwashing people into falling in love with Russia like they are right now. Taking Russia's side, voting for pro-Russian politicians in their government who will pretend to be nationalists when in reality they're just pro-Eurasia, Russia. And they're going to ride that wave. They want to ride this globalist wave. This whole idea that like globalists are bad or whatever. These people are globalists. Anyway, that's a whole nother video. Like what actually globalism means and how it's actually good for us. The way it has been conducted by the United States, which is, it's ending. It's basically done for. That type of globalism was good for us. Make no mistake, clearly this is globalism. Or maybe should be called that. But you were supposed to be lulled into a false sense of security with this false dialective of globalism versus nationalism. Clearly these people aren't nationalists. They can't be. They are using nationalism to conquer you. So yeah, a lot of this expansion is going to be done. You're going to be duped into accepting it because you're going to support the political party that's ultimately going to sell you out to Russia. But perhaps with, some type of federation where the elites, the French elites, the German elites, Spanish, Polish elites will get to administer their own, states. And that's why they're going to accept this idea. But that's the goal anyway, right? It's not all going to be done by conquest because there's not enough fucking Russians. There's not enough people willing to die for this bullshit. Most of this has to be done, I think, by brainwashing people into accepting this because, the muzzies and the gays and it's all in here. He talks about how we have to divide the United States because that's going to be the biggest problem, the biggest opponent of this movement. We have to divide and conquer the United States so they don't oppose us, right? So you have, and this is why I'm lukewarm toward Donald Trump. I see why he's doing certain things, and I believe that process could be steered in order for the benefit of the American people and anybody else that's going to be in that union, right? It doesn't have to be just because, let's say, United States gets Greenland and Mexico and parts of South America, brings them into the fold, that doesn't mean that people have to lose their liberties, right? But you have to fight for this, and people aren't. MAGA seems to be happy. MAGA, who's supposed to be pro-freedom, seems to be happy with the fact that some people are being thrown in prison, far away prison, right? That's the U.S. sphere of influence. That's already part of the North American Union. I misspoke in my last video. Sorry, El Salvador, Bukele's prisons, right? Without any due process. Some of them seem to be completely innocent. They're getting thrown in prison for some, rainbow tattoos and shit. Like, really? That's the world you want to live in? Like, that's not gonna come to bite you in your ass. You're just gonna roll over anything they tell you. You're just gonna say yes, 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 Massa Bossa. Yes, Massa Bossa. This is what I have to think today. Okay, no problem. You're not gonna have ideas of your own one day that won't be in their interest. You don't think so? What if they? Because this means war. Obviously, this is not gonna be a peaceful process. That means you're gonna get forced to fight. Maybe your children. Then you're gonna wake up and say, well, then you're gonna get sent into Bukele's prison that you helped build. Duh. Anyway, so this is why. So this is the problem for, let's say, the States and the West, right? Because of the way the elections work and how divided the U.S. political scene is right now, right? And how Russia and U.S.'s enemies, Israel. I always get these fucking clowns coming around here saying that I'm not coming, that I'm somehow I support the Jew or some dumb shit like that. You're just retarded. Tell me you're retarded without, and emotionally manipulated without telling me you're exactly that. The fuck out of here. You haven't even, tell me you don't watch my videos without telling me you don't watch my videos. You're an idiot. I don't know how you could form these ideas about me when clearly you don't pay attention to at the very least, you're not paying attention to what I'm saying. Get out of here. But maybe I'll address that comment because maybe you had some valid criticism in there in just a second. Anyway, the problem for the West is that, counterintuitively perhaps, is that they don't have a dictator. Okay? Because you get 4 years, maybe 8, but generally 4 years of the so-called left and 4 years of the so-called right, and they bicker and they fight, and one guy signs these executive orders and the other guy signs executive orders to repeal the other guy's executive orders, and it's for the most part stagnant and it's not moving fast enough, right? It's like, I got 4 years to do everything I need to do in order to maybe counteract what's happening in Russia and China, right? And then the other guy's going to come in and he's going to slow me down and whatever. He's going to slow the whole process down. There's no unity. Like, you could have domestic politic disputes, but when it comes to foreign policy, and for the most part, U.S. has been, it's not good enough. It's not strong enough, even though it has been moving in the same direction, right? Biden didn't want Ukraine to win. Trump doesn't want Ukraine to win. They don't. There's differences in how they conduct their business, but it's basically the same foreign policy, but it's not unified enough. You can have your internal strife, but don't allow all these foreign interests to come in and divide you with this bullshit, with these like McDonald videos. Daddy's home. This is what they think of you. You're a child, and you're there cheering Rosie O'Donnell and McDonald, is it, in their video, rapping Daddy's home. I mean, I thought the rational right, he's another contradiction, right? Had a problem with cultural appropriation. The fuck out of here. The fuck out of here. But this is the game, right? They think you're children, they treat you as children, and not everybody, obviously, right? And you respond by clapping. Yeah, daddy's home. Instead of taking charge of the process and helping to steer it. Unfortunately, right? This is why I'm lukewarm to some of Trump's geopolitical goals, wanting to take over Gaza and all these things. And Greenland, and even Canada, it has to be done correctly, though. Not by force. That's why I don't like his rhetoric. It's all in my videos. I don't like all antagonizing these people, because that means you're going to have to take them over by force. When you could unite peacefully and cooperate economically and grow stronger. But that's why this idea that Trump is a Russian asset, or there's people that control Trump. He's controlled. Of course he's controlled. There's too much Russian influence, okay, in US politics. While it makes sense for the United States to have a dictator counterintuitively, because that's the only way to counter all these other dictators that ultimately want to take over the United States. Sorry, because Putin has a 40-year plan and he's in power for all that. It's one brain. Don't get me wrong, the elites are there too, but it's one political party, and they're just moving along, however slowly. At least they're all moving in the same direction, not taking any steps back, not willingly anyway. Versus United States is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because of how the elections are structured, because of how the political system is. So counterintuitively, yes, in order to conquer a dictator, you need a dictator. I'm sorry. Unless you're able to unite. But maybe that's the plan, right? Get a dictator that's somehow friendly to Russia and China. I don't know. Like, you just have to wait and see. You have to steer this process, right? Get rid of fucking Elon Musk. That's for damn sure. Get rid of these crazies. Here's another thing. I was hearing all of it from the so-called rational right. I was hearing so much about technocracy, right? And how it's bad and wrong, and how Elon Musk is evil motherfucker and all this shit. And now that he switched sides, at least ostensibly, right? Now, like, you're not seeing all this criticism of Musk, and people are defending his blatant Nazi salute. He's descended from Nazis. His grandpa was a member of a Nazi political party during World War II. And he was part of a group, Technocracy Inc., and they wanted to unite, guess who? Greenland, Canada, United States, all the way down to South America. Bukele. Create one state. And I'm cool with that, so long as it ain't fucking Nazi. I hope you get my point, right? So, unfortunately, in this new world order, in order to counter the commies, you need a dictator. Or you need to usurp a lot of power so that you could steer the American giant in the same direction instead of taking 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. But can it please be, if you want it to be Christian, be fucking Christian. But whatever this is right now, it ain't that. You can't have 666, whatever the fuck it is, Avenue as your mark and convince me that this is Christian or something. Now, Trump he's a puppet. He could be steered and you could manipulate him, you know what I mean, by stroking his ego, all this other shit. But, like, you need to get the right people behind them. And at this point in time, I don't know if that's what's happening. And it definitely isn't fucking drug addicted, abused in his fucking childhood, unhinged, bipolar, schizo Musk that wants to put a fucking chip in your brain. That's definitely not the guy. And it's definitely not Bill Gates, whom Donald Trump had a 3-hour lunch dinner with the other day. And they talked about vaccines. And Bill Gates is so happy that Donald Trump was so receptive to all of his ideas. And they removed mRNA from scientific literature or something along those lines, where you're not able to, or you're not going to get any funding or whatever. Are they trying to hide this technology under a different name because people got hip to it? Are you trying to tell me they're going to stop vaccinating people? That's never going to happen, because some vaccines actually work. That's why the scientific community is pro-vaccine. But are they trying to hide this new technology, and they're going to change the name, where it's no longer going to be called a vaccine but something else, to get the people to accept it? But instead of staying vigilant and following the process, I'm just supposed to trust it. And where are all these people who are against technocracy and Musk? Where are they now? Anyway, so yeah, in order to counter what's happening, let's just say in the global East or Eurasia, China, right? You need a dictator, unfortunately, right? But just like I've said a million times before, that whatever you call this government that you have, whatever the structure is, however it's administrated, right, is not as important as whether or not the people in power are morally correct, good people. That's the only thing that matters. And I just don't see that happening right now. If Trump is so virtuous, why the fuck does he lie all the goddamn time? Why is he talking about banging his fucking daughter? Not in so many words, but right? Why is he saying Putin's a good guy? Anyway, it seems to me like somebody wants to distract you from all this evil shit that's coming out of Russia, and Israel is one of the scapegoats. Now, look, I am not saying that Israel isn't powerful. Those people, I've called those people fucking. It's a Nazi state. I've said that many times on this channel, right? I'm not trying to discount the role of Israel in all of this. What I am bringing to your attention is the fact that Israel was formed by and large by Russian Jewish elites. That's the people that are in the positions of power there. Now, maybe Netanyahu, he was a Polish Jew or whatever. German, I don't know. But it's Eastern European elites that created Israel and German elites. Okay? And British elites. These people don't really have a nationality, is the point. It's where does this authoritarian thought come from, right? Well, all over fucking Europe. Communism, Nazism, fascism, they're all leftists. It's all these leftists, yeah? I'm not smart enough, I'm not learned enough to be able to tell you exactly all the details, and I for damn sure can't address everything all the time in every single video. So if you don't watch all of my videos, shut the fuck up. You don't know anything about me. Sorry, well, you don't know enough about me to make these comments. Anyway, I'm going to address this comment because, well, A, it's dead wrong, and B, there's some, I guess, I'm going to put my baby gloves on, or kid gloves on, and be a little bit charitable, because again, and I don't expect you to, if you haven't seen, you don't know everything that's in my head, because A, I haven't put it all out there necessarily, and B, you haven't seen all of my videos all the damn time, or you're not paying well enough, you're not paying attention well enough, then I could see why you would think some of the things that you're thinking. Foul pole boxing. I get it, right? But that's me being charitable to you. Funny, he says, how ambiguous you are about Palestinian land being taken by force. I'm not ambiguous about that. It's all in my videos. What's the ambiguity? And yet so precise about Ukraine land being taken by force. Now, what does that even mean, right? This guy seems to... Anyway, let me read the whole comment first. Funny how partial you are of Zelensky. Funny how you describe U.S. policy as being anti-globalization and fail to mention it's pro-Zionist. So that's just a mischaracterization. I mean, I called Trump ZOG many times. I've questioned why he's so pro-Israel. I question it all the time. And I get a little twinkle in my eye when it looks to me like maybe he is doing something Netanyahu doesn't want done. These relationships are so complicated. Like, and I keep saying this all the time, these people agree on a lot of things, but not everything. And eventually all of that is going to come to a head. So that's just a misrepresentation of me. Funny how you could have all this clarity about me when you're spreading lies, misinformation. Okay, I'm giving you credit. Funny. It doesn't matter who is in the White House. The policy is anti. Like, I'm not inside your fucking head, dude. What are you saying? I don't even know what you're saying. LOL. The policy is Zionism. Okay, so the policy of the White House is Zionism. Oh my God. Like, the White House is pushing for Americans to populate Israel? The policy of the White House is Zion. I mean, dude, I am so sorry. You're a fucking idiot. You're just I would think, it seems to me like you've been emotionally manipulated and you're triggered by the fact that I'm going to a different source than you want me to go to. Did Israel create Russia, or did Russia create Israel? Was Russia one of the agents that created Israel, populated Israel? Or did Israel create Russia? Which is it, buddy? It seems to me like you're one step behind, and instead of, and I'm not saying it's all Russia either, right? It's a lot more complex than that. But if we compare the types of power that they have in the world, is it Israel with their 50 or so nukes, or is it Russia with their 1,000 plus nukes? Is it tiny Israel that's what, the size of Georgia, that Russia almost controls? Or like one of the oblasts in Ukraine that Russia controls? Or is it the biggest country in the world that's more powerful? But if you think that a big nose is the biggest clue, well, there's more big noses in position of power in Russia than there are in Israel, buddy. Zionism. Like, he doesn't even know what Zionism is. Israel is so past that. They're now looking to expand. It's Israel wants to be an empire. I don't think it's powerful enough. But it has a lot of influence all over the world and in the US government, and is able to manipulate, steer US to fund it to get some of its goals. And it's US's ally in the Middle East, right? And if you're against the Muzzies, which I'm sure you are, then wouldn't you have some good things to say about Israel? Well, no, because they're the ones sending the Muslims into Europe in order to destabilize Europe, just like Putin is. Anyway, so I'm not ambiguous about Palestinian land being taken by force. I'm not ambiguous about that at all. Okay? As I've stated before, the majority of Palestinians support Hamas. Hamas is evil. Israel is evil. The majority of Israelis are anti-Hamas, anti-Palestinians. These two peoples are clashing, have been forever. Okay? Now, if you're telling me that you care, do you? About people, especially innocent people, and in this case, it would have to be primarily just children. I already told you I don't give a fuck about the people that want to stay in Palestine and fight and destroy Israel. Those are lost souls. They're evil. We saw what they are capable of doing to innocent people. Because a lot of those young, whether they were American Israelis or Israelis, for example, at that rave, however degenerate and confused those kids were, they meant well. They were fighting for peace, and they went in there and they slaughtered them, kidnapped them. There's no, this idea that like all of Israel is just evil or all of Hamas is good. Like, what are you even saying? I don't understand. But anyway, that's a war between two evil factions. As I said many times, fuck them. The only ones I care about are the innocent children, insofar as Palestine is concerned, and some of the people there that don't support Hamas and just want to live peacefully. And insofar as I can tell, the only way for them to have a semblance of a good life, or maybe even a good life, is to get the fuck out of the war zone. I don't see Israel stopping anytime soon, and I don't see the United States stopping the support of Israel to do whatever the fuck they want to do. And the place is a shithole, and it's tiny. Maybe they could have a better life somewhere else, and they don't own the land anyway. They don't. Like, do you not know who owns the land? They don't own it anyway. So what are we supposed to do? Restructure the whole system? Good luck with that. Where people actually own the land that they live on? Do you think you own the shit that you live on? No, you don't. Maybe you own the bricks that your house is built out of. Okay, maybe. Maybe it's the bank. But the actual land, you don't fucking own that. So, like, we have to be reasonable, right? Oh, no. Reasonable, I guess, would be to just have the Palestinians fight the Jews, because ultimately you don't give a fuck about the Palestinians. You just hate the Jews. That's ultimately what your geopolitical analysis is. I hate the Jews. So anybody that could do harm to the Jews, I support them. You don't give a fuck about all those innocent children. Yeah, insofar as as I look at it, what I see is get these people innocent, at least, all the innocent people, the fuck out of there. And Trump is saying they're going to be able to come back. Hey, maybe that's another lie. I don't know. But get the innocent people out of there. Because if they stay, they die. Oh, but, they get to kill some Jews too, so that makes you happy, I guess. Palestinian land. I don't give a fuck about any of that. These people are evil. What gives them the right to own land when all they do with the land is turn it into a tool to kill other people, also innocent? That's all that they've done with their fucking land. And maybe, definitely the problem is Israel and the fact that they've been confined to a tiny space where they can't really do anything with the land. Okay, so get them the fuck out of there. Or what? Have them populate Israel? These radicalized, evil Hamas people? Like, we're just gonna, like, you gotta be realistic. What are we supposed to do? Move these millions of Jews back to where? Poland? Yeah? Well, you don't want that either, do you? So what do we do? It's like, I'm trying to make the best of a terrible, terrible situation. And what are your solutions? I hate the Jew. You're an idiot. Get the fuck out of here. You're misrepresenting everything that I say anyway. Funny how you describe U.S. policy as being anti-globalization. Well, as I've stated numerous times, but you don't watch my videos, so shut the fuck up, kid. Like, the whole concept of globalization is perverted. What does it even mean? And of course, the U.S. is anti-globalist right now. But I don't even know what you're saying exactly. But like, I'm supposed to say they're Zionists. It's not anti-globalization. It's Zionism. As if it couldn't be both. And I fail to see how it's Zionism. Is U.S. sending Jews to Israel? Is it? That would be Zionism, no? Yes, Israel has a lot of power in U.S. government and is able to get a lot of money from the United States to do the evil things that they do. But at the same time, however tricky this relationship is, Israel is an ally of the United States that helps the United States control the Middle East. And if the United States were to withdraw from the Middle East, I mean, well, Russia and or China would take it over. Israel would take over a certain portion of it. Nuclear weapons will proliferate. This, and maybe that's what's going to happen ultimately. I don't know, but everyone's gonna. As soon as the U.S. says we're done with the Middle East, we're out. They already want nukes, all of them. It's gonna be nukes are gonna just proliferate, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but before that even happens, these countries are gonna try to stop those countries from getting nukes, and a lot of people are gonna die. So I mean, the whole situation is so complex, complicated. I couldn't even begin to tell you what's ultimately good. But when I'm seeing US putting military bases in the Middle East, I see that as generally a good thing. Or the lesser of two evils. That's what I see it as. Because at the very least, it's not US just saying, here, Israel, have Gaza. No, 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 no. We're going to take over Gaza. At the very least, it seems to me like he's showing Israel who the boss is. I don't know. We have to see. And they're looking to control, as I stated before, the Suez Canal, which had come up in that leaked signal chat, right? Because it's important. Anyway, U.S. policy is pro-Zionist, guys. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's just like, you got triggered, okay, because you thought Andrew Wilson was like some anti-Zionist. That fucking guy doesn't dare say shit about the Jews. He doesn't dare. Because if he did, the shekels would dry up, you fucking clown. Yeah, he dog whistles. Of course he dog whistles. To get you to support him. And he probably does have a problem with Israel having all this influence in the United States. I do as well. So that's part of it. But he doesn't dare just come out right against Israel. Because the shekels would dry up. Sorry to say. The Jews, they control everything, right? Just not Andrew Wilson. They don't control me. And I don't hate them. Imagine that. So, yeah, I think you just got triggered because you realized how you've been duped on some level. And it's just cognitive dissonance. Andrew Wilson came across as an absolute inane nincompoop in this nincompoop, whatever the fuck the word is. As a child in this quote unquote debate. He just said, ha 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 ha, you fucking leftist. My daddy's gonna beat your daddy's ass. That's a summary of Andrew Wilson. And you know it's true, and that's probably why you got fucking triggered. And want to talk about Zionism and shit on a video that doesn't even have anything to do with that. Not really. The fuck out of here. Anyway, this is the new world order. I thought we were against this shit. I thought we were against this shit. But we're gonna focus all of our attention on the tiniest, one of the smallest fucking countries in the world. That's pretty powerful, but in the scheme of things, great scheme of things, not as powerful as the most powerful players. It's as if somebody wanted us to just divert our attention from everything else that's going on and concentrate on Israel that's like barely fucking staying alive. With all these rockets pointed at it. I mean, you can't even like clear out tiny little Gaza. Well, how long has it been? More than a year? And it's not like there's any constraints on what they can do. Well, okay, they can't just nuke it because they would be essentially nuking themselves. But if they could somehow put a glass dome over it where the radiation wouldn't spill everywhere else and piss everybody else off, they would nuke the fuck out of that place. But they can't. And when it comes to conventional warfare, they can't even fucking conquer what? Let's be honest, 50, 100,000 militants with RPGs and some rockets. These people, do they even have a tank or two, maybe? But yeah, it's Israel that's just all powerful and controls everything. Oh my God. Yes, they're powerful, they're evil, don't like the policies. It's a Nazi state, as I proved. But yeah, I think there's bigger, more important, more powerful, and more dangerous players involved. So I'm going to address them in order of importance, if you don't mind. Fucking clown shit. Anyway, if you have arguments, make them.